Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Gatewood and I am the Communications and Marketing Director at CFRE International. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Canadian Cfre Journey, a panel discussion. This is our first time running this, so we're very excited to have it going. I am going to just do a little bit of quick housekeeping. We are recording today's session and I will email you a link to the recording before the weekend. If you have any questions, you can ask them through the question pane and I will bubble those up to the panelists as is appropriate. I will also momentarily send you through the chat box all of the panelists' bios so you can take a look at those. And then we will treat all of your questions as anonymous. So don't worry about that when you send them through the question pane. The other folks won't see them. And then when I present the questions, we won't attach any names to that. All right, so let's kick this off. So today our panel is moderated by Sonia Swearjuk, CFRE, and she is the manager of annual programs for the Michael Garron Hospital Foundation in Toronto. So I will now turn it over to Sonia.
Well, thanks very much, Ashley, and welcome everyone to today's session. We're excited to be here, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you now our four panelists. And I will introduce them each by name in chronological order, alpha surname. So we're going to start with Carrie Ann Goodfellow, Daniel Lantagna, Sarah Lyon, and Anson Wong. So what I'm going to do is have each person introduce themselves briefly and share a fun fact about themselves. So over to you first, Carrie Ann.
Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Ann Goodfellow. I'm currently the Manager of Development at Youth Employment Services in Toronto. I got my CFRE in 2020, so relatively recently. And a fun fact about me is I grew up on an island off the west coast of Scotland, which had more sheep than people.
That's awesome, Carrie Ann. Thank you so much. Daniel?
Hi everyone, so Daniel from Montreal. I'm Senior Consultant at BNP Philanthropic Performance and BNP Goldie Canada. I'm also on my spare time Chairman of AFP Quebec Chapter. I just recertified for the first time my CFRE last week, and yay, I got it. So very happy. If not, I would not be with you today, I guess. So very happy I did that. Fun fact, I decided to become consultant a couple of months ago. And it has been a long shot, actually, thinking about it and all the reflection. And do you know when I started? March 2020. I don't think we could think of a worse time to change job, to become consultants. I don't have any clue if we're going to get clients or anything, but actually everything turned out fine. So that's kind of my fun fact, which is not so fun, but turned out well, actually.
That's great, Daniel. Thank you. Sarah?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Lyon, and I'm coming to you from the best coast to the East Coast today. I, up until recently, was the Director of Philanthropy at the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia for 14 years, and just announced that when I come off mat leave, I will be going to the SPCA as their Director of Marketing and Communications. I received my CFRE in 2015, and so I've recerted a couple of times, so I know that nerve, Daniel, of is it going to go through. And fun fact about me, although I never made it on TV, I actually went a few rounds in Canadian Idol when I was younger.
Congratulations on your new job, Sarah. And Anson.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm Anson from the Discovery Group based in Vancouver, BC, the only West Coast person here today, I suppose. I'm now with the Discovery Group as a campaign director undertaking a project for the Chinese Canadian Museum in BC. But in fact, I got my CFRE back in Hong Kong around 2019. I recently, well, not recently, I relocated back to Vancouver 6 months ago due to professional development. And at the time of I getting the I got the CFRE, I was 1 out of 4 CFREs from the Greater China region. So very exciting and privileged. Well, I suppose one of the fun facts is I love watching Mr. Bean, and I like to imitate Rowan Atkinson or Mr. Bean sometimes when appropriate. So thank you.
That's great, Anson. Thank
Yeah.
you. And for myself, I got my CFRE in 2003, so I've been through the recertification process a few times. Fun fact about me is, well, I'll share two, I'll cheat. I write limericks for special people in my life on special milestone birthdays and anniversaries. And I got my start in fundraising selling chocolates for my bowling team. So like Sarah, who got her start in fundraising selling Girl Guide cookies, food and fundraising, I think, are a natural mix. So there you go. So how the next hour is going to work is that we have a series of questions that we're going to pose to our panelists. And we invite you to ask your questions in the chat box, the question pane that Ashley is going to kindly monitor for us. So we're going to do our best to get through everyone's questions, including those to our panelists. So I'm going to start with our first question, starting off with Carrie. And that is, there are currently over, as Ashley has mentioned, currently over 1,100 CFREs in Canada, which is incredible. How did you first learn about the CFRE, and what initially made you think it would be good, would be the right path for you to take? So we'll start with Carrie, and then we'll go to Daniel, Sarah, and Anson. So Carrie Ann, take us away.
Well, I learned about CFRE way back in 2009 after taking my first fundraising course. I kind of fell into fundraising like so many of us do when I moved to Canada in 2008. So I did the Fundraising 101 course at BCIT, and I was still super early in my fundraising career, obviously, back then, but I realized very quickly on that this was something I loved and I wanted to keep doing. So I knew this was the career path I wanted to take. It just took me another 10 years to finally get the confidence up to actually go forward and sit the thing. So yeah, so it just took me a wee while.
That's great, and I think that's an experience that those of us here who have our CFRE for quite some time, it did take us a while to get to that point. So thank you for sharing that. Daniel, your perspectives.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy that we're now about what you said, 1,100 CFRs in Canada. I think we're about close to, or we're at 50 right now in Quebec. So I wish we were more, but it's increasing actually. So that's pretty good. And I'm very proud to be one of them. Back in time, the first time I heard about CFRE, I think it was a visit from Eva from CFRE International to her local chapter at EFP. And I have no clue what it was since we were only a couple of them in Quebec. But after a couple of minutes, I was looking at all people so excited. You know, they were in their study groups looking to become CFRE. They were at this step in their career, and I was like, wow. That's a target I could have, and so I said, well, I can put that in my agenda because I was way too young, not in terms of age, but in terms of experience at the time. So I put that in my agenda, and then when I finally hit, you know, the minimal score to apply and the experience years required, so I jumped in, and I'm very happy that I had this opportunity to discuss with people from CFRE International and to have great mentors who really invited me to go through that. I just think of Luce Moreau, a great CFRE member since many years, who certainly inspired me to go through that process. So so that's kind of what made my my path to this accreditation.
That's wonderful. Great to have people like Luce as a mentor for sure. Sarah?
So I think a lot like what Daniel was saying, and a theme that's going to be in a lot of my answers for anybody who is in a small town or remote, away from a city center on the East Coast, is we have let's say a handful. I think we're up to 25 now, I believe, CFREs here in Nova Scotia. And at the time we had less than 20. And I think that I didn't really know any CFREs because it wasn't something that I saw a lot in the industry. Like a lot of people fell into it, have a public relations degree. So when I got my job, I wanted to learn more about this profession, right? Because what was fundraising? And when I found the CFRE, like Daniel, like a lot of us, I'm a goal setter and I have to be good at this. So I would say check out an AFP chapter that's close to you. A lot of times you don't have to be an AFP member to go to sessions. So my AFP chapter held a session with one of our CFREs that came and talked to whoever was interested in becoming one.
That's awesome, and thank you for mentioning that great opportunity to connect with an additional resource. Anson, how about you?
Sure. Well, in fact, I came across CFRE around 10 years ago when I first worked for the Nature Conservancy Hong Kong office. So at that time, a lot of my supervisors or team members back in the state, they do have the CFRE designation, and I was very curious. What's that about? You know, CFRE at that time was really new, and in 2010, 11, I think there was only one CFRE in the Greater China region or in Hong Kong, essentially. So I learned about it, the importance and how applicable in the organization and the fundraising sector. But I wasn't sure whether I would stay in the field at that time. So I didn't do it at that particular moment. But later I learned about the recognition from an international context, especially outside of the US actually. So like the UK, Europe, Australia, and Canada. So subsequently I decided to go for it. And as I mentioned, I got it in 2019 when I was working for an Australian charity, actually, the Fred Hollows Foundation. And I thought it would have to expand also the professionalism of fundraising in the Greater China region. And I've got a very good mentor, Natalie Kiention, who was my former supervisor at One Sky, originally based in Hong Kong, but now relocated back in UK. So it's been a very exciting journey, actually. And it took me around, it took a long time, actually. As I mentioned to you, there's quite a gap, but to get ready for the CFRE. So yeah, thank you.
Well, we're glad that you decided to stick with our profession, Anson.
Yes.
Great to have your international experience and perspective here, as well as Clary Ann's.
Thanks.
So my next question is, why do you feel it's important for fundraising professionals to hold a recognized certification like CFRE? So Daniel, we're going to start with you, then move to Sarah, Anson, and then Carrie Ann. So
Sure.
Daniel?
Yeah, that's quite a good question. After my name, there's CFRE, but there's also a couple of other letters. And one is I'm a member of a professional order in human resources. And to me, that was kind of a no-brainer being part of that professional order, because that's what I'm doing. I'm professional HR. I want people to know that I know what I'm talking about. And that is exactly the same thing in fundraising. We don't have professional orders in Quebec, and I don't think across the country, but CFRE is the closest thing to that. And so it's good for as a professional fundraising, but as well for the donors. So I think it's really a win-win situation where we can put out front that we know what we're talking about. We're not just doing that, part-time volunteering. We're being paid. We're professional in what we're doing. We've studied that. We're keep going and pushing for a lot of continual education, and actually we're fundraising and fundraisers. So I think that's kind of the good side of it, and I think that the credential of CFRE is certainly putting a lot of confidence for everyone and a lot of credibility as well. To me, it was part of my expectation in becoming a CFRE.
Great, thank you. Sarah?
So I think that it is important for us from, the same perspective that Danielle's talking about, but also we are a very feminized industry. 80% of us are women. And so credentials that can help in trust, in confidence when we are dealing with philanthropists, with corporations, where professionalism is very much something that they're going to look for and something that they respect. I think that it is important for us to have.
I appreciate that lens. Anson?
Well, I think is as mentioned by Danielle and Sarah, I think it's a seal of approval and also show credibility for the prospect and the donor, and especially for high value or ultra high net worth donors and senior executive of the grant giving bodies like foundations. So I think the credibility, especially where I came from in Asia, fundraising sometimes is very much based on intuition, the end justify the means, so the end justify the means, yes, so to speak, kind of approach. But I think the CFRE add professionalism and kind of both arts and science kind of approach. Yeah. Thanks.
Marianne?
I agree with everything my colleagues have said, and I think also the biggest piece for me was just gaining the confidence. It really helped me feel so much more confident in my abilities and my knowledge, which in turn has helped me be better at my job and advocating for the things that I know are right. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to move on to our third question, which is, did you receive advice from anyone who holds their CFRE designation before submitting your own application? And if yes, what was it? So we're going to start with Sarah, then move to Anson, Carrie Ann, and then Danielle.
I don't have many CFREs that I could have talked to at the time, to be honest. And so the ones that I did talk to, what I took from them was I studied one topic at a time, because we know that there are 3 pages of recommended reading, but studying one topic at a time really helped me focus. And, if you're not a studier, it can seem really intimidating. So that's just one tip that you can use. And I studied everywhere. So I would take one book at a time and I would have it in my bag. You would find me studying at hockey games. You would find me studying at lunch. So for me, that was really important. One topic at a time really helped, I think.
Great. Anson?
Right, and well, as I mentioned to you, at that time in Hong Kong, there was only one CFRE, and who is actually a friend of mine, Vincent Low, who is actually the board of director for CFRE International. But quite obviously, in the Chinese or Asian culture, it's not appropriate to ask for tips or insight. So I actually reached out to CFRE back in UK actually to seek for advice. Or she's my former supervisor. Then she also, I had coaching from her on specific topics on a weekly basis. So a lot of preparations. But other than that, going online, looking at what distance learning or online programs to fulfill the requirements, and also reach out to fellow CFRE in the online group to see what I should be looking at. So that's kind of my approach there. Yeah, at that time.
And I appreciate you raising the fact that, or the point that it's not in everyone's own culture to be seeking advice. I think that's a very pertinent point. So thank you for raising that. Carrie Ann?
So my best friend is a lady called Justine Katz, who is an amazing fundraiser here in Toronto. And she got her CFRE and then spent the next year doing her best to get me to finally go ahead and submit my application. So really with her, it was just giving me that confidence boost. She's like, you can do this. Like, she walked me through, like, these are the sections you're going to be asked on. You know these things. So it was really just having somebody who knew my work and obviously worked in the sector that was able to give me just that final kick in the hootie that I needed to get going and actually do. And she was really great because she had done hers. She actually had a number of those books, so she was able to lend me them, which saved some financial, strain as well for those. So yeah,
For sure, that's great. Danielle?
Well, I got two very great tips that were very relevant. The first one was start your application as soon as you can. Just open an application and track everything. That will take some time. That will require some energy and some research finding, all the information on the past congress you went and everything. So that was a great advice, actually. It seems very simple, but that's a good one. And the other one was obviously studying English. As you can hear with the small accent I have, English is not my first language. And they said, well, first of all, the question will be in English and the answers will be in English. So you better be ready to get and to know your stuff in that second language of yours. And yes, I think that was the hardest part for me, was when I was in front of a computer, when the question was like, what is the most, what is the first? I'm like, well, most, they are all the most, they are all the first to me. And so that was really to make sure that we are kind of, make sure that we get exactly the meaning of everything. So yeah, studying in English, making sure that we understand every single word, I think was one of the two best relevant tip I got for my preparation.
Those are great observations, and I would invite our entire audience here today that you now have 5 folks who have their CFREs, who I'm sure if you reached out to any one of us or all of us, we would be more than happy to have a conversation with you after this webinar, whether it's later today, tomorrow, down the road, whenever you're ready. And Ashley can provide our contact information to you if you reach out. So thanks everyone for your perspectives on that question. On to number 4, and we'll start with Anson this time, then move to Carrie-Anne, Danielle, and Sarah. So question 4 is, and Danielle, I know you've already started to answer this, but tell us how you approached the application and went about earning the needed education points to complete the application. So Anson?
Right, thank you, and thanks Danielle for actually, at the ZipSec. Yes, I think that is a very good question, and well, and also in relation to the early question, seek advice from the peer CFRE. So I had I received advice from my coach Natalie from UK on the approach, and also I think very importantly is to look at the test guideline on the website and get be incredibly prepared. And there are actually a lot of tips or information on the website on how you could approach that effectively. And the other thing is also, and I know we will come to that question later on, but I think the extra reading material that would be useful, and the online test, the prep, the mock exam, so to speak. And I still kept, I intentionally this is a very, very old one, you can see. So, and also there's some flashcards. I think because I don't have a peer group or study group in Hong Kong, so I make up imaginary CFREs in Hong Kong help me to do that together. So by imaginary meaning that, okay, I have some mock question myself, and then go through the website, go through the guideline. I think that's incredibly important, and look at what's available online to get your education points.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Thank you.
Great lead off. Thank you, Anson. Carrie-Anne?
So I got really lucky at my current workplace because we have a small pot of funding that we can pull on for personal development. So I was I'd already taken a few courses at Ryerson here in Toronto on various fundraising topics. So I'd actually pretty much gained the education points I needed through that. So I would certainly say if you're struggling with education points, try to see if there is a way that your work can potentially help pay for it, even if it's not all of your education, maybe some of it. And same with the actual, the cost to register and for the CFRE exam as well. And there's also some great sites like that's on the CFRE site. There are lists of education, approved education providers. There's one called Charity How To, which when I speak to people, I always rave about this because it's free. There are some paid webinars on there, but a number of them are free, and they actually have CFRE points attached to them. So I would, that was a great one for if you're just trying to, maybe you've, like me, you maxed out your PD and you were trying to just, keep spending to a minimum. That's a great way to go.
Awesome, great recommendation. Danielle?
Well, I kind of answered it a bit at the previous question, but when I was looking at the education section, I was like, oh my God, I need to go and participate in so many conference and congress. And actually, I just realized that it wasn't so hard to get those points. I've been known as a guy who just apply for every bursary in my local chapter and across EFP. And so I've participated in all the congress, conference, and every education session that I could participate in. Most of the time, they do give a CFRE point tracker. So if you haven't saw this, it's a good thing to kind of look for. So you get all the information you need to track down in your applications. You get the name of the trainer, who organized that, how many credits or hours it planned and everything. So just gathering that actually make it pretty easy to get the points for education. It's not as hard or impossible as it might seem when you first look at the application file.
Great. And Sarah.
So my experience is definitely changed since when I tried to get my CFRE, for the better for everybody who's looking to get theirs. So we're doing better in Atlantic Canada about education, but I would have to travel to Congress, to ICON to get my education points. And, you know, thankfully now we have more webinars than ever. You know, some silver linings that are coming out of the pandemic is you can get a lot of education online. So I would do what everybody else is saying. I would start researching what is available, and I would start actually, if you're serious about this, is there's going to be some webinars that come up and you think that's not really important right now in my workplace, but it might be for the CFRE exam. It's going to be for your education points. So don't dismiss something. I know I was in a small shop. I was one of only 2 fundraisers. So for me to take time to do a webinar or go to education, I was trying to justify it like, well, I can come back to work and immediately do this. And I had to change my thinking a little bit to get those points. I actually, a year dropped off in my education and in my application because I didn't have enough education. So I think it's really important to just not narrowly look at PD opportunities.
Those are all excellent observations and recommendations, and I would just like to add a couple of my own. As has been mentioned, we have a plethora of webinar opportunities that are sanctioned by CFRE for education points. So even if you can't watch or be part of the webinar like on the day that it's happening, register, get the recording, and then watch it later at your leisure, so you at least get the points. And secondly, I would say that in addition to Danielle's point about, you know, just open the document, the application document, start filling things in and adding to them as you go. If you're make sure that you're gathering the information that you need on the revenue generating side from your work, so that you have it fairly recent, just in case you end up changing jobs or moving on from your current job. You want to make sure you have access to that information from your previous employer or employers, so that when it comes to the time where you're hitting the send button, you're on your application, you're not scrambling trying to get info that you just may not have access to anymore to complete the application. So Ashley, I'm just going to do a quick check-in. Are there any hot questions that we need to address now before we move on to question 5?
Not at the second, but when we get to question 6 about people preparing for the exam, we have had a question come in if everyone could also share how many hours they studied. So just know, have a think on that. But when we get to that exam question, how many hours you studied.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So question 5, and we're going to start off again with Carrie Ann. So we'll go to Carrie Ann, Danielle, Sarah, and Anson. And this was a tricky one for me in my own experience, but did you speak to your boss about supporting your CFRE journey? If yes, how did you approach the conversation and what was the outcome? And if you didn't, what was your reason why? And did your boss know you were on the hunt for your CFRE certification? So Carrie Ann.
Okay, so again, I am incredibly lucky that my boss, who's our VP, Sinead McCarthy, is just incredibly supportive of personal development and growth. And yeah, she was fully behind this. Like when I broached it with her to say, is there an opportunity for maybe, you know, my PD being used to pay for the exam rather than, you know, would that still count? She's like, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not even going to try. She's got this wonderfully thick Irish accent, and I'm not going to try and imitate it because I'm terrible at accents. But yeah, she was so effusive about that I should go for this, and she was just incredibly supportive. You know, making sure that I had time if I needed it to be able to do more studying, etc. So yeah, so I got really lucky.
Now?
Well, I wish I had the same answer to provide. Back in time, I was an executive director, so my boss was the board of directors, all people from business. And as I mentioned, we're not so many CFRE in Quebec. So they never heard about that credential. So they were like, well, good for you. How much will it cost? And yay. That was kind of it, actually. So they were not only passive, they were supportive, they paid for it, which is great. But that was mostly it. It was like, okay, well, what's in it for us? I said, well, that's kind of win-win for everybody. And then we had to have this discussion about how it can improve the confidence of donor giving to our organization, and also making sure that they have the best executive director they can have. So yeah, that has been like correct conversation about that.
Great. Thank you. Sarah?
So I'm an open book. I probably tell people too much stuff. So I told my boss right away this is what I was interested in doing. And, you know, at the time we were 7 people. The organization is now up to 30. So we were very small, and my boss was completely for it. He knew that there was few CFREs, but I think what's more important than that is he knew that I had drive, and he knew that I was going to do this. And so he supported me because he saw that this was going to be good for the organization, but also good for my career. And, you know, I really do have to thank them, because I probably used up all the PD that was available for a very long time, because we were such a small shop. And, you know, I think that being open with your employer about it is important, because you are going to have times where you need to study or do webinars or, you know, do any of that. Some people choose to not ask their employer to pay for any of that as well. So I want to recognize that some people just don't want to own it themselves in a way. You know, we had to have the conversation about after the exam, you know, what if I left? How do we pay that back? You know, I was really fortunate. The one thing I do want to say is that the day of the exam, I was really nervous, and my boss came in to say, good luck. And he said, why are you shaking? And I was like, because I'm nervous, I'm going to come back and tell you that I failed. And he said, I'm nervous you're going to come back and say that you passed and you're leaving. Right? So I had a very supportive boss, and I think that that's important, and a privilege that I had on my CFRE journey that I want to recognize.
That's great, Sarah. And I appreciate you raising the point that it's not just financial support that an organization or a manager or your teammates can provide, but it's the space and time to do the studying. You know, do you have to use a vacation day or a personal day to write the exam? You know, and all of this you need to figure out, you know, before you actually go into that testing center to write. So, Anson?
Well, me being in the outpost of those international organizations in Hong Kong, got an extremely small team, while most of the employers or, you know, supervisors, they were very supportive back from the States or Australia or UK. They said, okay, that's fine, as long as you can manage to raise certain amount of money and then not affecting your work, go for it. We are not going to pay for it. You are not going to take time off. It's your own time, everything on your own. But I was very determined that, okay, fine. I want to pursue that. It's my own actualization. I find that significant. So I'm not going to bother the organization in terms of resources or even time. So they were mutually supportive, financially not. So yes. And some supervisor in some organization would actually question, would you need a CFRE in Hong Kong or in Asia? No. What that mean to you is, would that be useful? But I think yes, absolutely. So yes, my 2 cents.
Great. Great. And I'm just going to wear my consulting hat for a moment. And for those of you who are on the consulting side of things, with respect to the application and having to report revenue, it's really important that you get your client's permission to do that. I actually put that into my letters of agreement or contracts, that I will be using the figures of revenue raised to report in the application. That everything's confidential, only to be used by CFRE International for either the application or recertification process. But it's important that you to get that from your clients, and that your clients can be supportive too, just like if you were in an organization side with your teammates and a manager. So let your clients know, because they can be supportive, and they can also understand a little more when you say, I really can't do this today because I'm writing an exam. So thank you everyone for that. So here's question 6. And we'll go first to Danielle, then Sarah, Anson, and Carrie Ann. Now, once you hit the send button on your submission for your application, how long was it until you took your exam? Can you tell us how your approach to studying was? And then the question from the floor is, how many hours, give or take, did you actually study for the exam? So we'll start again with Danielle.
Well, that's the hardest question, because I don't have a big memory for that. But what I remember is that when I apply, I remember it was kind of test window and dates and everything, and I kind of, I've set goals saying, okay, this is my date, this is going to be very close, I'll need to study to rush it, and I've put all the energy in it. And going back to what Sarah said, I studied kind of topic by topic, every single thing. I was looking at what is the section with most questions, and where am I more familiar with or not, or where do I feel I'm more familiar with, I might not be reading the books. So I've bought all the books, all of them. And I took the CFRE refresher course at my Quebec chapter. I kind of put all the good odds for me going through to go to that exam. So I don't know how many hours I spent, but I know I think in 1 hour I was kind of studying 3 hours at the same time, trying to put everything together, get all the information from my colleagues CFREs as well. But I haven't participated in a study group. That was not at the time, but I gathered everything I could, and yeah, I jumped in, and that was my ultimate target at the time.
That's great. Sarah?
So yeah, I think I was watching to see when I could submit, and I started studying, and I'm thinking maybe about a year in advance I really started to study. Again, out of that first AFP group of people that came together to hear about CFREs, I was the only one at the time who was writing it. So I didn't have a study group like Daniel. I also didn't have the budget to buy the books. So I took to Twitter, and I met some people who were studying in Toronto, and they would each take a book, they would write the recommendations, and they would send me their pages. So I'm totally grateful to them, because I also had their study notes. The other thing I did is, after I hit submit, I, as well as Daniel, went to my AFP, went to the AFP Foundation for Philanthropy Canada and applied for a bursary. And I received money to do the CFRE refresher course, and was very fortunate to do it at the end of November in Saskatoon. So I flew to Saskatoon, never saw the sun, and I came back, and within a week, I was writing my exam. And I will say this about the refresher course, if you can get to one, whether it's in your town or you can get a bursary to go to one, is it really did help. It went from studying to actual application. And so I remember when I was doing the exam, I would stop and say, wait, there was a story about a cocktail party and a donor and a board member, and I was able to answer the questions a little bit like that. So I would say watch your application and start studying when you can. There are people who just do the refresher course because they have the experience, but again, as we know, the exam is more than, it's not about experience, it's about theory. So we haven't touched on that, but it's about theory.
Excellent. Yes, not what your practice and experience is, but what the best practice and theory is on that. Great point, Sarah. Anson?
Well, thanks for the wonderful sharing, Sarah, and obviously Danielle and Carrie. To Totally. Well, it's been a while, and I think it's around 3 months before, hitting the submit button and then actually getting the exam, because the examination schedule or time slot for Asia is very limited, and then it's through Pearson. So there's Pearson doing a lot of other exams in Hong Kong apart from CFRE, so GMAT, SAT, blah blah blah. And I remember I did the exam twice. The first time in Hong Kong, and at the second time actually because of the duration and the period allowing you to retake the exam and not to second exam and not to expire. I actually need to flew to Taipei to do the exam actually. Yeah. And again, it's very little, but there's no physical courses or seminar or in Hong Kong at that time. So mostly online, or go through the reading list and then chat with people in the group. And also, as I mentioned, I had a coach from UK, considering the time difference, blah blah blah, and then we would do that once a week for an hour on particular topic. And then I found the CFRE exam compass study guide. The practice exam online provides a good overview, while the CFRE exam secret study guide, as which I showed earlier, and the CFRE flashcards are quite useful. And then additional reading materials include achieving excellence in fundraising, the don't abuse of right, and the glossary of fundraising terminology, particularly like myself as a non-native English speaker. I found that's immensely useful. And then the CFRE study aids was really helpful as well, particularly again the reading list. So it's about the theory, which mentioned by Sarah and Sonia, and the best practice, and not what you have been doing all along before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Carrie-Anne.
So I submitted in October of 2019, and then I had booked my exam at that time for February 2020. I didn't actually start studying until I'd submitted the application and got the okay to go ahead and book the exam. I don't like to give myself too long to do things, because otherwise I know I am going to procrastinate. And it's going to be the day before the exam and I'm going to realize I ain't done no studying. So I want to give myself a shorter space of time, because I knew that would be work better for me for studying. And yeah, in terms of the hours, many hours. This was one of, I was super serious about this. I really wanted it. I was like Sarah, I was so nervous. I was absolutely 100% convinced I was going to fail this thing. So I spent a long time, and the thing that was the best resource for me was that practice exam, because I was able to see, I've joked to people before, when I first did the practice exam, I nearly cried because I had failed in every single area. I'm like, okay. But some areas I was really bad at, and some areas not so much. So I was really focusing on those areas that I hadn't done so well at, and it just took me a while to get my head into it's the best practice, and that was such a key piece of advice for me as well. Yeah,
That's great. I appreciate that, and thank you to Anson for mentioning Rosso's book, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. That was certainly back in the day when I did my writing, which was not electronic, it was old school pencil and paper. That was my go-to resource, so thank you for that. I'm just mindful of time, so for the next question, I'm just going to ask everyone to keep it to 45 seconds max. Your answers.
Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We've actually had a couple questions come in relating to the exam. So if you don't mind, if I just bubble those up, and maybe we could have one or two people answer each of them just in the name of time.
Sure.
So the first is, are there certain education topics the panelists recommend for people who are close to completing their application? Topics that may be particularly helpful for studying and or completing the exam? Would anybody like to take that question? Any particular topics you think people should focus their education time on to help prep them for the exam?
Securities, capital gains, the taxes. That one was very very hard for me.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Let's see, we've got another question here. Was anyone caught off guard or surprised with anything about the exam content? Obviously, we can't discuss individual, I saw this question and here were the 4 answers and I got, but in a more general state, is there anyone that felt caught off guard or surprised with anything about the exam content?
Well, one particular question on overall is, the difference or differentiation of philanthropy and fundraising. I remember that because I dropped it down after my exams. So that's types of things, that the definition, the terminology kind of thing, but especially for a non-native English speaker, sometimes is more or less the same thing, but actually not. So go to the glossary.
Excellent. And I will drop the link to the glossary in the chat box in the next few minutes. So for everyone, have a look there in a couple minutes and you'll see that link come through. And then one last question here about the exam. Did everyone pass on their first try? And if not, what did you do to prepare for the second time?
Well, I have to say I failed the first time. I was too confident. So, when I said I rushed it, and I didn't know if I was going to talk about the fact that I failed the first time or not today. But since somebody asked a question, why not giving the true answer? I felt I rushed more. I was overconfident, and then I realized that I thought I was so good about volunteer and a couple of stuff, and I said, well, maybe I'm good. But the thing is that I was overthinking the questions. I was always coming back to my reality instead of the theory. I was always saying, well, yeah, well, the board is not so perfect. The foundation might not be super perfect. So I was always overthinking. And then somebody just saying, well, don't overthink. You're in a small shop. Everything's going fine. Everybody's donating. The board is participating. Everything is in the best condition. So that was actually the best tip I got. And when I passed my exam, actually, it went pretty well. So thanks to that. But yeah.
We're glad you got it on the second go, Danielle. I'm going to abbreviate our next question. So I'm going to start with Sarah, then go to Anson, Carrie Ann, and Danielle. I'm going to ask you for 2 words to describe what your testing experience was like. Just 2 words. So Sarah?
Sterile. Just sterile.
Okay, 1 word's good too. Anson, 2 words.
Incredibly prepared.
Oh, okay, good for you. Carrie Ann?
Nauseating and thrilling.
And Daniel?
I'll try with the 2 words, but I remember the end palm that we had to put at the person center, and I was like, oh my God, where am I? So that's more than 2 words, but that's what I remember. Don't stress with that, but that's something that if you're not used to, that might seem strange when you arrive at the test center.
Okay, that's great. And for me also, it was hot, because when I wrote it, it was actually in a school in New Jersey in July. So it was hot and surprising that I actually finished it. Because again, mine was in the paper and pencil days. So we've got 2 questions left. So we're going to start with the last big one, starting with Anson, then Carrie Ann, Daniel, and Sarah. How has becoming a certified fundraising executive benefited either you or your fundraising practice, or your career, or the organization that you work for? So if you could keep your answers to a minute, that would be great. So Anson?
Well, very briefly, I think it is extremely important and helped me to land my current position right now from Hong Kong to Canada. So internationally recognized, especially in North America. And then it's a seal of approval of your professional experience. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you. Carrie Ann?
To me, it's just the main benefits that is the increase in confidence that it gave me as somebody who, again, fell into fundraising, didn't really have an education. So just to have that confidence to be able to do my job. And and has really helped to stamp out a lot of those insecurities. So yeah.
That's great. Danielle?
Yeah, I couldn't more agree with Anson and Carrie, and I'm sure I will agree with what Sarah will say also. Yeah, it was confidence. It was, yeah, I'm on my X. I belong to this sector. I'm good at what I'm doing, and yes, because sometimes, when you're in fundraising, you sometimes ask yourself question. Well, I did ask myself a couple of times question, will I go back in the corporate sector, or am I missing something or everything? But then when you get this result that has been printed at the test center and it says, well, you are now a CFRE, well, I say, okay, this is where I belong, and that is perfectly fine with me. I was so proud, and that's over all the benefits that you can put in columns and everything. That was the thing that I wanted mostly. So it was achieved. Yeah.
So I think for me, there's two ways to look at this. So I was very fortunate. I think we all know that I had a great workplace. I got an immediate pay raise when the CFRE certificate came, because I didn't get to see that right away. So I was very lucky there. The workplace benefits. So, Amy Einstein has research that shows that when somebody gets their CFRE, they raise more money in the next year. More education, you get more money you raised. So my organization raised more money. My team got a little bit more coaching because I had the confidence to say I can really teach you this. I think personally for me, I'm a bit of an extrovert. So the CFRE has allowed me to, Daniel's laughing, he knows. So, I've benefited from being a speaker at conferences, being volunteering with AFP, being part of my AFP mentor program, and being a coach to others in the industry.
That's great, and I appreciate you raising, an expanded volunteer opportunity for you, and for anyone really, including there's volunteer opportunities with CFRE International. I'm currently a CFRE ambassador, and is one of the reasons why I'm with you all here today. For me, I just wanted to add an auxiliary benefit of achieving your CFRE is the people that you've met along the way. In the CFRE International network, whether it's online, in person, the people you've met in your study group. These are all folks who, if they aren't still fundraising friends, they can also become personal friends. So I see that as an extra benefit too. Our last question for today, for anyone in our audience who is maybe sitting on the fence about earning their CFRE credential, what's your advice? And we're going to start with Carrie Ann, then move to Danielle, Sarah, and Anson.
Get off the fence. It took me 10 years, and I wish I'd done it sooner. I'm glad I did it, but I wish I'd done it sooner. And it's you can do it. If you just believe in yourself, get the education, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna get it.
That's great. Just do it.
Exactly. I was just going to say, just do it. Actually, I mean, all the reasons are good. You can look at all the Q&A and what are the good reasons to become CFRE, but your reason is the good one. And no matter what you have in mind, just go jump in and give it a try. I'm sure you're gonna achieve it. So yeah, sure, just do it.
I'm going to be more practical. Go to CFRE, open the application, start, because you do not want to forget an experience, education, money's raised. Go and just start your profile. Doesn't mean you will write it. We're going to hope that you will, but it doesn't mean it. Just start. It's free.
Well, same as Carrie Ann, Danielle, and Sarah. Just do it. And I wish I could have done that earlier. And also, it's not just about fundraising. It's the management of a non-profit organization or even a social profit sector. And this is a foundation, a basis to drive the ultimate social impact and social change. So yes, do it. Yeah. Thank you.
Before I turn it over to Ashley, I just wanted to thank our wonderful panelists today, Anson, Danielle, Carrie Ann, and Sarah. Thank you for your information, your insights, and your inspiration in encouraging folks to continue on the path to get their CFRE. So thank you everyone for being here. We look forward to seeing your name on a CFRE role down the road. So thank you, and over to you, Ashley.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. We've had a couple of questions squeezed in here, so I'm going to just say if one or two people would like to answer this. The first one is, if you could suggest just one book to use to study, what would it be? So if someone wants to tell us the most valuable book that they used.
I'll say Rosso.
Yep.
Achieving Excellence in Fundraising.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Immensely useful.
Excellent. So for folks on the line, that's the Achieving Excellence in Fundraising book. It is available on Amazon. Actually, the audiobook is frequently free with an Audible account trial on Amazon Canada. So I encourage you to look there. Another question, was there anyone that did not finish the exam within the 4-hour window that you're given? Anyone need more than 4 hours for it? All right, I see a lot of shaking heads, so that's a good answer. So you have 4 hours to answer 200 multiple choice questions. Last year, the average length of time it took people to complete the exam was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So you will often find yourself with a lot of time, and you can go back and check your answers.
Yeah, and
I actually took a break.
Go ahead, Sarah.
No, sorry, I actually took a break because I thought I was going too quickly.
Oh, that's excellent.
Don't
That's
compare yourself. Don't compare yourself with other people in the room. They're not taking the same exam. They're not doing
Yes.
CFRE.
Exactly.
They might do anything you have no clue. So they might leave
Yeah.
in 20 minutes. They might not have the right to leave because you're going to see they all have different rules depending on the exam. So don't compare yourself to the other one. And we don't have the right to look at them. So just forget them.
Exactly, totally. And if you have question, try to drop down the uncertain question on that plastic sheets. Then you have ample amount of time to come back and look at it. So yeah, I still remember some of the question in my head.
And just to follow on to what Anson said, so you will be given either a piece of scrap paper and a pencil at the test center or a dry erase board. And so you can write down the numbers of the questions that you want to go back to and check. And then we have another question here. So in order to reach the professional performance, so the dollars that you've raised requirement, if you work in a smaller shop and you can't make that through just the dollars you've brought in, we do have the ability for you to do that via communications and management projects. Did anyone on the line do that, or did everyone meet the requirement through dollars raised?
No.
I almost had to do it on a recertification because there was a year or so during my consultancy where I really didn't have a whole lot of work. So and I was working, and I work predominantly with smaller shops. So it was tough to get those dollars raised. I appreciate it. So I was looking at what projects would qualify. And I actually started writing out the information that I would need to include in my recertification. But in the end, I didn't have to use it. So.
Very good.
And I believe I did. Sorry,
and I know somebody. No. So I know somebody who did, but.
Yeah, so mine was 2014, 2015. So I believe that for the initial one, I did have to use that option. And then in my research, I didn't.
Excellent. All right, we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to make one really quick plug in case people didn't hear this who are joining us on the line. There is a new change to the exam that started on January 15th. When you take the exam, you will be given the first 100 questions. Then there's an optional 10-minute break, but you cannot go back to the first 100 questions. So check those questions very diligently before you take your break. Even if you decide not to take the break and you just kind of click the button to proceed, it will not let you go back to those first 100 questions. After your 10-minute break, you will see the next 100 questions, and then you can like float around through there and check your work, answer the questions, and that kind of a thing. Well, I just want to thank all of our fabulous panelists and Sonia for doing an incredible job moderating. It's been wonderful hearing from everyone about their CFRE journey. Super valuable. We've had a lot of great questions with people on the line. The recording is headed your way within the next 36 hours, so watch your inbox. Thank you to everyone, and take care. And if you have any questions, email succeed@cfre.org. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.